Good afternoon, Skip. How are you today?
I'm fine, and how are you?
Every day is a day. So I asked you to participate in my diversity chats because as a Black man, you have a perspective that Black women do not have, but is equally enforceable and used against Black women and brown men. So I would like you to share with us some of the experiences you have had in your youth, in your role at work, and in your home life, and in your social life as a Black man.
First of all, I'd like to tell everyone that I am currently a third grade teacher. I've always wanted to be a teacher, and that's the lens I'm going to eventually come from in this chat, is from a teacher's point of view. But to start off, I was raised in Durham, North Carolina, which is a very progressive city. I grew up in a all Black middle class neighborhood. I think the neighborhood gave me a very strong foundation of who I was. So when those racial attacks did come in elementary school, middle school, and high school, it was very easy to brush those off because I was pretty much aware of who I am, and those attacks weren't my problem, it was their problem.
Okay, that makes sense. How would you describe those attacks in your youth? What were they, and how did they impact you?
The one that I could think of first, I was in the third grade, and this was right before Durham totally integrated schools. Myself and another Black boy were the only two Black kids sent to an all-white school, or in my grade level. And they put us in the same class, and we just happened to be at the map looking at the map, and we got to Africa and the country Niger. A little boy looked at me and he said, "Oh, the N-word," and looked at me and was like, "Is that where you from?" I had no clue what he was talking about. I'm from Durham. So when I went home and told this to my parents, that's when they, listen, I'm all the way in the third grade. I've made it to the third grade sheltered from all of this unrest that was happening in the 60s. They explained to me how everybody's not kind to you. And some people are unkind to you or mean to you because of the color of your skin. So that was my first introduction to prejudice.
And so as you had these encounters where race was an issue and the strong foundation you spoke of, did they give you some sense of confidence or awareness of your surroundings and how to carry yourself when you encountered situations like this?
Yeah, I think mine may have been a little different. It was just be weary, but then go be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Try not to place yourself in harm's way, but then go live your life.
Okay.
I think the biggest one, I was probably in my late 20s, maybe even 30. I was helping a friend move to Fayetteville. So I was driving his gray Nissan truck. He was driving the U-Haul. So he was ahead of me, but I knew where I was going. The next thing I know, 5 or 6 police cars surround me.
Wow.
Not only did they have handguns, they had shotguns and everything. And they stopped me, pointed everything to me. They told me somebody that was involved in a black pickup truck. Remember, I said I was driving a gray truck.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhat fitting my description, and the key word there is somewhat, had been involved in a drive-by shooting. So I gave him my license, the registration from the truck. I knew where it was. They checked everything out and said I could go.
Were you afraid?
Yeah, I was afraid. You had 5, 6, 7 guns pointed at you. Yeah. But I just did all of those things that they tell you you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
I did those things. I wasn't confrontational. And the object is to see the next day.
Amen. So you said that you are a teacher. Tell me what that means in relation to being a teacher, and I assume you teach in the public school sector. What does it mean when you see Black and brown kids coming into your school that are hungry or abused or neglected or have some trauma to them? How are you as a Black man able to support or help them?
I'm going to take myself out of it first, then I'll put myself back in it. The first part, the first way that it can be looked at is I'm there to educate the child while they're in my classroom, and I'm not going to look at all of that other stuff. I can deal with the here and now, and that's it. That's the way a lot of teachers look at it. I'm not one of those people. I had a good upbringing, but it wasn't perfect. So it's very easy to sympathize with the way that a lot of kids come to school. Some kids are hungry. You send them to the cafeteria to get something to eat. I write a note to somebody in the cafeteria and tell them this child is hungry. Give them something. So as long as the school has a system of those sympathetic people in it, you could help some of that. Or if you think a child is being abused, you have a legal responsibility to report that.
Mm-hmm.
And you do that, but I still follow up. I could do my legal obligation if somebody else dropped the ball. Mm-hmm. So I do make sure I follow up on my reporting of any issues like that.
Okay. And so as you have moved through your career, and how long have you been a teacher now?
25 plus years.
And I think you said you always knew you were going to be a teacher.
Yeah, I always knew.
Mm-hmm. And so I'm asking a question and I'm not really sure of the answer, so please help me with this. Are public and private schools mostly taught by white women?
Oh, yes. And that's why, one of those big buzzwords right now is diversity and inclusion. But so many people have different definitions of what they are. What does diversity and inclusion mean to you?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
To be seen as equal, to have an opportunity to participate in the American dream, in American capitalism, and American equality, regardless of the color of my skin, the kink of my hair, or the thickness of my lips and my hips.
And I think I'd probably take an even more simple point of view. Diversity is being asked to go to a dance. Inclusion is being asked to dance.
Excellent point.
So diversity has to do with uniqueness, and inclusion has to do with feeling welcome. And
So
if people can't even define them, how do we expect people to, or organizations to diversify and be inclusive? Because a lot of times you probably will run across 100 different meanings of those two words.
yes. So you have children?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about them?
Probably a daughter that was a girl's girl and a son that's a boy's boy. And that's probably not appropriate terminology these days, but that's just who they are. She was a sit down, be still and read, and he is a don't want to read, he wants to do, and he's loud and screaming all the time.
I take it these children are adults now.
They're adults now, yes.
And so when your children leave you to go to the grocery store, to go to work, to go to school, wherever they go, when they leave the comforts of your home, do you have a fear or concern for their well-being while they're in the public domain?
Not a fear. They both know how to behave. They both know what to do. I have a concern.
How is
But,
that different?
but like I said earlier, you have to live your life. So you go about and you do those things that you want to do and those things that you need to do. But then when you do encounter those unwelcome things by whoever it may be, other people, police, or whatever, um, the object is to live to see another day. So do what you need to do to live another day.
So with that philosophy, recent murders of Black men and women at the hands of law enforcement, could it not be said they were going about their lives and doing the best they could to come back home or to finish their chore or task or whatever brought them out of their houses into the public domain? I mean,
Absolutely. And then, unfortunately, some cases are just more extremes than the others. You just go into the grocery store and somebody screams out obscenity at you is bad enough. But then to die at the hands of the police is beyond understanding.
so you told us about when you were younger and helping your friend move. Have you, as now an adult, experienced racism from someone not a police officer, but maybe a colleague or a neighbor or a friend? Or can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. You know, doing all of this COVID-19 stuff that's been going on, a lot of people are home a lot more than they usually are. So, you know, to break my in-house monotony, I walk the neighborhood quite a bit. And one of those first few days, I had a neighbor, because I had seen him before, and I try to be aware of myself, ask me, hey, what are you doing in this neighborhood? And I told him what I thought about his words, and I kept on with my walk.
You were not afraid?
No, I wasn't afraid. He should have been afraid. I wasn't afraid.
Typical Skip answer. So let's talk about George Floyd a little bit. What have you thought about, one, his death, two, the protests, and what you think the outcome of these protests and all of this outrage will be?
I can't think about it. That's too much. And my little brain can't handle that. You know, seeing that man, I will admit that I'm a mama's boy. Almost everybody I know is a mama's boy. And for this man to be calling for his mother, I mean, I don't know if he was calling for her to come help him, or if he was in the process of transitioning and he was more like, hey mama. But it's I mean, between George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Tamir Rice, Eric Gardner, Philando Castillo, Alton Sterling, Oscar Grant, Trayvon Martin, Emmett Till, it goes on and on. It's too much. And that's what this what seems to be a movement is saying, it's too much. We cannot do this anymore. And it's also people of non-color that it's too much for them too. Finally, it's too much for them. And that's why this seems to feel a little different than some of those people that I named earlier dying. This is different this time.
So you expect there will be change?
I'm not going that far, because you still have those people that are okay with the way things are. I'm not sure if this moment will last beyond the next news cycle.
Right.
What I'm saying is, this seems a little different.
To bring something back to thought, in 2009 or 2008, really, we elected our first Black president. And from what you could see from an outsider looking in, his presidency was almost pristine. When you think about having a Black president, does that give you any sense that the world does have the capacity to change?
Yes, I'm a citizen of the world, but I'm a citizen of the United States. This isn't a uniquely United States problem, but that's the problem we're looking at right now. So as far as looking at the United States, some people are stuck in those old ways, and it's hard for them to let go. But that change is slowly coming. Maybe it just was sped up a few miles per hour. But there's still those people that are trying to put the brakes on it, but other people are trying to put the accelerator on it.
As an educator, I have a question about the protest. So what are your thoughts about people being in these massive crowds with and without masks? What do you think that means to us as a larger society?
Okay. When I look at the protest, I think if my son was going to buy some Skittles and some tea and never came home, or if my son was at a corner store doing whatever he was doing, or your son was kneed to death by, or if my son was kneed to death by somebody, I'd be trying to burn everything down too. So I understand how these people feel, because I would feel the same way.
Right. So let me go back to
I'm not saying these people are right. I'm just saying I understand the feeling, because I would have the exact same feeling. Like I said earlier, enough is enough. And sometimes you don't know how to control that rage that goes on, and the slightest thing can set you off. Human nature.
okay. So let me go back to the school system. So we've heard a lot about whether and how institutions are considering returning to school. So in the light of COVID, but also in the light of very loud protests about injustices to people of color. And I know you don't like that word because that word means it gives more power, if you will, to people of non-color. But when you combine COVID with racism, do you have some thought about what this will mean for the children that are coming up now? How will they see the world? What will they do to impact and change the world?
Children, I teach third grade, they know when they're treated differently. They may not have the ability to say what it is. They might not know what racism is. They just know that they're being treated different. When you put COVID-19 on top of that, I think they are so busy trying to just look out for what's happening in their own personal four walls. Temporarily, that racism part has to go away. That health overrides everything. You and your family's health override everything, because right now you're stuck in your house, or where we live, we're for the most part are still in our homes, and you don't really need to worry about the outside world right now. You just need to worry about attempting to stay safe,
So,
because of social economics. One person staying safe is a half acre or more out in the suburbs so your kids can still get in the backyard and play. But then another person's, you have on that same half an acre, you have 15 units. And you can't go, there is no common area. And if it is common area, by law, it's outlawed to go there. So it's much easier for something to spread when you're that pressed in, compacted.
so do you think schools will return to some sort of normalcy this fall or next spring? I'm thinking COVID more than.
This school is going to open up on the date that it's supposed to open. The question is that safe? But I think the intent as of right now, at least in North Carolina, is mid-August, kids go to school like they always have.
Okay, so I think I've asked the questions that I wanted to ask. I have one more that I would like to ask in relation to your son that you mentioned earlier. So you have an adult son, and he's pretty intelligent and knows the correct behaviors and things to do when he's out and about. Are you a proponent or opponent of the death penalty?
Another two-headed coin. I guess if it's done to other people, I'm not particularly a fan of the death penalty. But I could see if it was done to mine, yep, kill them. So that's why I think it should be on the table. I think that there are some crimes that are so egregious that you don't deserve to be here. So I guess all of that means I am a proponent of the death penalty, and that's even hard for me to even admit, because for them, so many Black men have been put to death for crimes, one, that they didn't do, and number two, if they did do the crime, they didn't earn that penalty.
That makes sense. I'm going to ask you one last question, and this is my last question. We have about 4 minutes left. You have two brothers, one older and one younger,
Correct?
a father,
Yep,
and you recently lost your mother.
that's correct.
So as you look at your more larger family or extended family, do you have fears or concerns for them? And what are your thoughts of what your mother would think of this?
I'm not quite understanding the question, but fears about what?
So I'm assuming that your brothers and father and mother are all Black,
Yeah.
and
I,
they're
I
adult.
didn't know if you meant the fear of racial unrest in the country or the fear of COVID-19. That's why I didn't know which way you were headed.
I'm asking specific about race. So
Okay.
with your family members, and I'm sorry for the loss of your mother, but with the family members that you still have, do you have any concerns about their well-being in a society where it is so easy to kill a Black man? And we have seen so many instances of this where the law enforcement officer or officers walk away with no penalty whatsoever. Do you have any concerns for your family that's left? And then follow up, what would your mother think about these times?
Concerns, yes. Like I said earlier, not fears. I think we've all been instilled with some values that are what is the correct word or politically correct word? Some values that can help us survive to that next day. That may not be the right time to be popping off at the mouth. Yes, there are people that can comply and are still dead.
Yep.
But the chances of seeing that next day are better if you comply and then attempt to stay out of situations that you shouldn't be in. And sometimes problems come after you instead of you looking at problems, but you still need to attempt to stay away from problems. What would my mother think? My mother grew up in a time that was much more prejudiced than I can ever imagine. So she would see the progress. She would be happy that the citizens seem to be coming together right now, but she would also be leery because of her past interactions with her past interactions. Let me just leave it there.
So I'm going to leave this last 2 minutes to you to add any thoughts or comments that you want. If questions I had not asked or other things you wish to share, these are now your 2 minutes to do so.
Well, I don't even need the whole 2 minutes. I just think about those Black men and women that have needlessly been killed at the hands of law enforcement lately. People always talk about Blue Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, all lives matter. The fire engine puts the water on the house that's on fire. The house that is on fire right now is the Black house. So I'm not talking about the blue house, or I'm not talking about all the other houses. And stop trying to bring them into the equation when it's the house that's on fire that needs the water. And I'll end it with hands up, don't shoot, and I can't breathe.
Well, thank you very much, Skip. It was very good to speak with you, and I hope you will come back and speak with us at another time, and we can further discuss some of the things that you've shared, because I think your positions as a school teacher is very unique, because I imagine there are not a lot of Black male school teachers, and I don't know what that means for you, just in the in working with your colleagues and the plight that you see for your students. So I'd like to talk about that again at some time in the future. But I thank you very much for this time today. I hope you're well, and I hope your family and everyone stays safe. Thank you.
And thank you for having me, and hope yours stays safe also.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.